Here we're asked to solve the quadratic equation x minus 3 squared equals 16. Now normally you want to isolate the x squared. In this case we have a squared on the left side, it's a squared term, and so we have it isolated already. What we need to do now is we need to square root both sides. In other words, we need to get rid of that square on the left side. So in other words, we can square root both sides, which is actually what we've been doing in our previous examples. We've been square rooting both sides. So the square root of a square, the square root of x minus 3 squared, is just x minus 3. And the square root of 16 is where we have to be careful. What is the square root of 16? Well, it could be 4 or it could be negative 4. Remember from the square root property. So we either have x minus 3 equals 4, or we have x minus 3 equals negative 4. So we have two solutions again we're going to come up with. And to finally get our solutions, we add 3 to both sides for each equation. For each equation we're going to add 3 to both sides. So this equation will give me x equals 4 plus 3 is 7. And in this equation will give me x equals negative 4 plus 3. Negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So here are my two solutions to this equation. One thing to note, sometimes instead of writing two equations like this, we may sometimes see it like x minus 3 equals plus or minus 4. And so you may want to get used to this notation. Rather than writing two equations, we could write it as one equation where the right side is plus or minus something. We're still going to end up with two solutions when we add 3 to both sides. We'll take a few more examples. In this problem, we're asked to solve the problem quadratic equation x minus 1 squared equals negative 2. Now, before you go about trying to solve this quadratic equation, you have to remember the square root property. Remember, the square root property said if x squared equals a and a is greater than or equal to 0, then we have these solutions. Then x is equal to the square root of a, or x is equal to the negative square root of a. That is the square root property. Here we have x minus 1 squared is equal to a negative number, not a positive number. This says this number on the right has to be positive. And so what that tells me, in fact, there's nothing you can square to get a negative number. And so what that tells you, that we have no solution to this problem. So always look for that. If you have something squared equal to a negative number, you're not going to have a solution to that equation. So the answer to this problem would be no solution. Or, more correctly, no real solution. Sometimes when you're solving a quadratic equation, you won't end up with a nice whole number. In fact, that happens most of the time. Here's a situation where we want to solve the equation 5x minus 2 all squared equals 10. And so the first step again is to isolate the squared term, which is what is done for us already. And then we want to get rid of the square by taking the square root of both sides. So we square root both sides. And by square rooting both sides, the left side, you square root of square, it becomes undone. So we get 5x minus 2 on the left side. And the right side becomes what? Remember, you can have the positive root of 10 or the negative root of 10. So in this case, I'm going to write plus or minus root 10, which means the positive root or the negative root. And now what do you do? Well, we want x. We want to find the answer of what x is. And so x is going to be, we have to isolate x by first adding 2 to both sides. So we add 2 to both sides to get 5x equals plus or minus root 10 plus 2. And then what do? Well, we want x, so I can divide both sides by 5. So we'll find our answer is x equals plus or minus root 10 plus 2 over 5. So this is my solution. This is actually two solutions. There are two solutions here. And what are the actual two solutions? Well, we have plus root 10 plus 2 over 5. And we also have negative root 10 plus 2 over 5. And so those are two solutions, and those are actually two decimals. You may have to plug that in your calculator to actually get the solution. If you do plug that in your calculator, the decimal solutions are 1.032 for root 10 plus 2 over 5, and negative 0.232 for negative root 10 plus 2 over 5. And there are actually more decimal places that we didn't put here. So you'll find that most of your solutions when you're solving quadratic equations will come out like this, with these type of irrational solutions. Now, we've just been square rooting both sides using the square root property. Sometimes it's not set up for you to just square root both sides. To use this property, you need to do some manipulation. And that's what we're going to look at next, in what we call completing the square. So we'll look at that next.